All right. Today we are going to cover like the 5 equilibrium condition in international finance, or 5 parity condition in international finance. You know, in your textbook, it shows only three theories there, 3 conditions, including a purchasing power parity, international Fisher effect, and interest rate parity. But actually, we need 5 to complete the equilibrium condition in the international finance. We need 5. So this 5 will complete our discussion there. So when you read the textbook, it will show only 3 theories, but don't be discouraged. We will cover here, and then that will make the story complete. Okay. All right. We have. Let me open this. Here we have Web 22. That's good. Actually, let me take a picture first for class attendance. Okay. All right. All right. Okay, Ellen, can you go over this 5 briefly? Ellen?
All right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So for this, am I just reading the things in red?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. So for the first one, we have purchasing power. 2 is the Fisher effect. 3 is international Fisher effect. 4 is interest rate. And then for 5, we have forward rate as unbiased future rate.
Okay. Actually, this purchasing power parity should be purchasing power parity, not, okay, parity, yeah. Purchasing power parity. All right, so we will cover this one. Let me ask one question. I mean, if you give me some more time today, like 5-10 minutes, we can finish this all today. And then that means, Thursday you'll be off and free. Would you like to do that or split into 2?
Do it all today.
Yeah, we should finish it all today.
Okay. All right. Let's do that. I think we can do that. We can finish this one. All right, let's do it. And then I need this. Okay. All right. Here, the first one is purchasing power parity. Purchasing power parity. It says, just a moment. I think, yeah. Okay. Do that. Purchasing power parity. The basic idea about the purchasing power parity is a foreign currency with high relative inflation would depreciate during the next period. I think we already know this one here from chapter 4, right? In chapter 4, we know the relative inflation is a determinant of exchange rate, right? So if a country has high relative inflation, then that exchange rate is supposed to go down, depreciate. Or if a currency has the low relative inflation, then the currency will appreciate in the near future. So that's we understand. And the percentage change in exchange rate, it should be equal to relative inflation between the 2 countries. That one we did not cover yet. Let's do this one here. Now, so based on this one here, based on this idea, the model, purchasing power parity model, the complete form is this one here. So E1, E0 is the foreign currency exchange rate, right? British pound, British pound. When we talk about the British pound, the change, it's 1 plus I US over 1 plus IF is the UK, right? UK. So if the UK inflation is high, that means what does that mean? This one is low, this one is less than 1. That means, this one, E1 should be low, meaning E1 should depreciate. So that is consistent with this story, okay? If this one, inflation is low in UK, then the whole thing is high, higher than 1. That means, E1 should be higher, and that means appreciate. So this model is the complete form or absolute form of PPP, purchasing power parity, And if we change this one, if you want to change that to relative form, you subtract 1 from both sides. Subtract 1 from both sides, then this side, left-hand side, will be this way. It's a percentage change in exchange rate, right? You see that? So if you subtract this one, then the IUS minus IF over 1 plus IF. So we have this two expression there, right? Now, this one is left-hand side is the percentage change in exchange rate. That is this one, E. Right-hand side, this one is the complete form, but the practitioners, they use the approximation, right? The approximation for this one is this, okay? The numerator, IUS minus IF. So the relative form, short form, is percentage change in exchange rate. This one, percentage change in exchange rate is equal to or close to the relative inflation or inflation differential. That is the short form. So we have two forms here, the complete form and short form. All right, now understand. So they explain the second one. Percentage change in exchange rate is relative inflation or inflation differential between the two countries. Now, assume that the spot rate of Mexican peso is 0.10 today. That's E0, right? E0. The inflation, US inflation is 7% expected to be. Mexican inflation is 4%, okay, 4%. What is the expected future spot rate of Mexican peso in 1 year based on this PPP? Okay. To solve this question, you can either use this absolute form and then relative form. Let me show you both. Actually, let me borrow this copy and paste here. Okay, this one will be also this way, right? Let me use this one here. The first one, use that one here. The first one is, you could say this way. E0, okay? E0 should be subtract that way, and this one should be E1. Oops. E1. Here, see? If you change that one, if you look at this one here, that one is this one here. Do you see that? I use this one to derive this. Understand that? Okay. So using this, we can calculate the E1 there. E1 is E0. E0 is 0.10 times, let's see, 1 plus IUS is 7%. 7% divided by, 7% divided by 1 plus 4%. 4%. See, I used the complete model, the absolute form, right? Complete form. And then what we got? I got 0.10288. 10288. You see that? So just okay, all right. So we have 0.1029. That is E1. So you know what? There, if you compare that, the U.S. inflation is 7%. Mexican the inflation is 4%. So this one is low. Mexican is low. That means the whole thing is higher than 1. That means E1 should be higher. Appreciate. That's what happened here. It was 10 cents, right? 10 cents, but expected to appreciate like greater than 10 cents based on this inflation, the relative inflation. That's the first approach to use this complete form. Let's use the second form there. Now, second form is E should be equal to the relative inflation there, right? So US is 7% minus 4%, which is 3%. 3%. See, that's from the relative form. What that means is, since this is percentage, E1 should be equal to E0 times 1 plus 3%. See? So that is the okay. That is the from this short form. Let's calculate that one here. 0.10 times 1 plus 3%. What is that? It's the 0.103. It's very close to this one here. Right? Since this is approximation, it's they are not quite equal, but very close. So that's what the way that practitioners use. So your expected exchange rate for Mexican peso next year, in 1 year, is 0.103. That is based on short form. There's a 0.103, very close, is based on the absolute form. Got it? It's simple, right? All right. Graphical illustration of this, relative form of PPP. So one is percentage change in exchange rate. That's the left-hand side. Right-hand side is relative inflation. So let's put relative inflation on y-axis and percentage change in exchange rate on x-axis there. Right? All right. If they are equal, if these two are equal, that is called purchasing power parity line. That's the equilibrium, right? Equilibrium. If any exchange rate is located in here on this line, then it is an equilibrium condition. So nothing happens. However, let's look at the C. C is above this PPP line. This one is C, right? Point above PPP line, point C. So that is what? This the relative inflation is 4%. But the exchange rate is the percentage change in exchange rate is 1% there. It's 1%, 4%, meaning this one is based on this information, relative inflation of 4%, the exchange rate percentage change is 1% there. It is not parity or equilibrium condition. They should be equal. Should be equal. So what happens is this one is supposed to move toward PPP line until they are equalized. Okay. So in this case, our expectation is that this currency will continue to appreciate until it hits purchasing power parity line. Okay, so that's what's going to. So you could say that the currency is expected to appreciate toward PPP line. Okay, right. All right. Oops. What is this? All right. Yeah. All right. On the other hand, D. Look at this one, D. Look at this one here. The relative inflation is minus 3%, right? But the exchange rate, the percentage change is minus 2%. Now, in this case, if it is below this one here, below PPP line, now the percentage change in exchange rate is minus 2%. This one is minus 3%. So this one, E is higher. E is higher than relative inflation. So in this case, this one is supposed to be equal. This one is supposed to be minus 3% there, but it's stopped at minus 2%. So our expectation will be the currency, see, will continue, is expected to go down, right? Move this way. So depreciate until toward PPP line there. So that is what we expect based on this, based on this PPP, purchasing power parity. So this one is supposed to, expected to continue this way, right? This way. The reason why I said this one continue this way is that the inflation, U.S. inflation and foreign inflation, they are not quite easily adjusted. The flexible exchange rate will adjust to achieve this purchasing power parity. So that's what I mean. This should move this way. It might move kind of a little bit this way, a little bit this way, that way, but the general idea would be, I would say, this one will, the exchange rate will adjust itself to achieve PPP line. That's a safe statement. All right. So this is abstract discussion or illustration about purchasing power parity. I think you have a pretty good idea now, right? Future effect. Future effect. The good idea is that nominal interest rate contains two components. One is expected inflation plus real interest rate. Now, real interest rates usually are equalized across countries. Otherwise, arbitrageurs will drive this real interest rate to parity. So this story, that is future effect. Actually, it's a future theory, right? In economics, it's about the nominal and the real interest rate. Real interest rate, it comes from there. All right, let me show you. The absolute complete form is this. Look at this. If you look at the second part, It's 1 plus I US, that's the interest rate. 1 plus I US, that's the inflation. So nominal interest rate adjusted for inflation, what is that called? That's a real interest rate, right? Real interest rate. This is the UK, for example. UK interest rate adjusted for UK inflation. That's the real interest rate for the UK, right? For the UK. All right. And if you move this one interest rate this way and this one this way, you have this model too. It's the same thing. Okay. So 1 plus I US over 1 plus I UK, 1 plus I big I US, 1 plus big I UK. All right. So if you change this one to relative form, the same way as we did in purchasing power parity here, it comes down to this way. So if you minus, subtract 1 from both sides, and we have the approximation, then you get this one. This is numerator here. If you subtract 1 from both sides, this is numerator, and this is approximation. So what do you see? The IUS minus IUK, this is relative interest. Relative interest is equal to relative inflation. Now, this one derives from there, but the one that derives from here is this. This one makes more sense there. Look at this. IUS minus big IUS is interest rate minus inflation rate. What is that? That's the real interest rate. Do you see that? Real interest rate. Nominal interest rate minus inflation, that's a real interest rate. So real interest rate, the US real interest rate should be equal to UK real interest rate. That is this story. Real interest rate are equalized across countries. Otherwise, arbitrageurs will drive their real interest rate, rate to parity by moving. They're moving their cash flows. They're moving their capital flows from low real interest rate to higher interest rate. You see that? Look at this. Assume that interest rate on a 1 year insured US country bank is 6%, but UK 7% interest rate. So interest rate is 6%, and this one is 7%. Okay, interest rate. And then inflation rate, US inflation is 5%, and UK is 4%. Wait, is that right? Okay, so 1% for interest rate. All right. US. So if you look at this, if you calculate real interest rate in US and UK, real interest rate is what? Real interest rate, real is just simply this one minus this, right? The same way, this one and this one here. See that? So real interest rate is higher, much higher in UK than in the US. So what do you expect? Now it says real interest rate should be equalized across countries. Otherwise, arbitrageurs they will move their capital to higher real interest rate. In this case, it's a substantial decrease there. So the arbitrageurs or investors, they will move their capital from US to UK to exploit this higher attractive real interest rate in UK. Does that make sense? So US investors, they move their capital, wait. They will move their capital to UK to exploit the real interest rate, which will continue until they are equalized. So the cash flow will continue from US to UK until this real interest rate are equal. They are equalized. All right. So that's the Fisher effect. All right, now, okay, graphical illustration in our relative form. All right. So in this one, the 45-degree line is the degree line where the relative interest rate is equal to relative inflation, right? So if, as long as any country is on this line, nothing happens because they are in equilibrium, right? And equilibrium. So it is called the Fisher effect line. Fisher effect line. Now, if any point is above this Fisher effect line, like in the country C there. So that means here the relative inflation interest rate is higher than relative inflation there. You see that 1% and 4%. Now, what that means is this relative interest rate is higher than relative inflation. Now, this is the same as this one. If you move this one to this one, is move this one this way, then that becomes this way. Now look at this. This one, I small I minus inflation, I small I interest rate minus inflation, is a real interest rate. Real interest rate. Do you see that? So in this case, US real interest rate is higher than the foreign interest rate. So what do you expect? Capital will continue to flow from foreign country to US because the real interest rate in US is higher. There, that one. Okay, that one. So in this case, we don't know which one is more flexible, right? So this one could somehow approach somewhere. Could be this way, could be this way. Approach to achieve Fisher effect. All right, Fisher effect equilibrium. Now, country D is this one here. Now, this one is like, if you look at this one, the relative inflation is higher than the relative interest rate. So if you look at this one here, foreign real interest rate is greater than, higher than US real interest rate. So in this case, capital will flow from US to foreign country until above are equalized, until they are equalized. There. So it will move toward is Fisher effect line. Okay, that's a story about Fisher effect. Fisher effect is not included in the textbook, but in my view, it should be included there to explain the whole purchasing power parity. More importantly, this Fisher effect that drives international Fisher effect, because this international Fisher effect can be derived through purchasing power parity and Fisher effect. Then you derive the international Fisher effect. That's combination of Fisher effect and purchasing power parity. So I would include this Fisher effect in the textbook, but somehow they did not. Yeah. So international Fisher effect, combination of Fisher effect and purchasing power parity. The currencies with the high interest rate will have high expected inflation. Then relatively high inflation will cause the currency to depreciate. This one is again is a combination of Fisher effect and purchasing power parity, right? Purchasing power parity. So you have to interpret or to explain international Fisher effect. You should be careful. I mean, you have to go 2 steps. First, Fisher effect says, right? It's a relative inflation, a relative interest, and relative inflation. So should be equal, or the real interest rate. So you have to use this idea. Let's bring that idea in here. Is that currencies with high interest rate will have, wait a second, okay. will have high expected inflation. That's because of the Fisher effect, right? High interest rate will lead to higher expected inflation because Fisher effect. Fisher effect is like the real interest rate should be equal, right? Should be equal. Or the relative interest rate should be equalized the relative expected inflation. So high interest rate lead to higher expected inflation, then higher inflation cause the currency to depreciate. This is purchasing power parity, right? So since international Fisher effect combines Fisher effect and purchasing power parity, so you should follow this one when you interpret that, when you describe the international Fisher effect. All right. So currency with high interest rate will have high expected inflation, and then relative high inflation will cause the currencies to depreciate. So Fisher effect and purchasing power parity. This interpretation sometimes might be in conflict with the actual world, the procedure. We'll talk about that. Absolute form is now, if you combine Fisher effect and purchasing power parity, look at this one. Purchasing power parity that equals this one with the inflation, right? Inflation. But this one is interest rate. But okay, let me show you. Purchasing power parity that match this one with inflation, right? But Fisher effect that matches inflation and interest rate there. So international Fisher effect that matches this the exchange rate and interest rate there is through purchasing power parity and Fisher effect. All right, so that's why we have this equality, interest rate, not inflation. If you change that to relative form the same way, right? This one is percentage change in exchange rate, and if you do this one here, this one is the numerator. Approximation is relative interest rate. So the percentage change in exchange rate should be equal to relative interest rate. All right. Let's assume that, oh, by the way, let me, let's do this way. Okay, Ellen, can you help me? Can you read this example? Ellen? Or Bernard?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Assume the interest rate on a 1-year insured home country bank deposit is 5%, and the interest rate on a 1-year insured foreign bank deposit is 6%. For the actual returns of these two investments to be similar from the perspective of investors in the home country, the foreign currency would have to change over the investment horizon by the following percentage.
Okay. All right. Interest rate here. I mean, let me use the currency is not given here, but let me use this one here. Let me use this model relative form here. Okay, that's again E is the percentage change in exchange rate. Okay, so oops. E, the percentage change in exchange rate should be close, approximately equal to the relative inflation. So let me give you this way. Yeah, oops. All right, that should be U.S. interest rate is 5%. So 5%. 6% there. You see that? And this one is what? This one is our 1 minus 1%. You see that? So relative interest rate is minus 1%. That means this currency, whatever it is, this currency, given this information, relative interest rate minus 1, given this information, this currency is expected to appreciate by 1% in the near future, in the next year. You see what I mean? Okay. That is the international Fisher effect. International Fisher effect. Let me explain this one again graphically. If international Fisher effect does this 45-degree, that's the international Fisher effect line, okay, line. And then disparity, let's use J. J is here, right? J is the relative interest rate or interest rate differential is 2%, and then the percentage change in exchange rate is minus 2%, way away from this, not PPP, this is IFE. Way away, the IFE line. This one IFE to IFE line. IFE line way above the IFE line. So what do you expect is this one is here. It was supposed to be here, right? So this one, this currency is supposed to increase or appreciate until it hits international Fisher effect. So this exchange rate is supposed to appreciate to reach 2% during the next period. Okay, to achieve the equilibrium, parity, this should be equal, but it is way away from the equality, the parity. So flexible exchange rate should appreciate to turn to minus 1%, 0.12% to reach there. So this one should go this way. Now, if it is below that, G is also way away from the IFE line there, right? So this one is supposed to move this way and hit until it hits IFE line, international Fisher effect line. So look at this, relative interest rate is minus 30%. E is 2%, way above. So this exchange rate will depreciate until it hits minus 3. Minus 2, 0, minus 1, minus 2, minus 3. Here. So exchange rate is supposed to depreciate to reach minus 3% during the next period. Does that make sense? Right? Based on this model, and then based on this, graphical expression, this is supposed to happen based on international Fisher effect. All right. Now, Brandon.
Yeah.
Can you read this one?
Yeah.
Okay.
The IFE theory contradicts how a country with a high interest rate can attract mid capital flows, and therefore cause local currency's value to strengthen. IFE theory also contradicts how central banks may purposely try to raise interest rates in order to attract funds and strengthen the value of their local currencies.
Okay, all right. Now, IFE theory contradicts how a country with a high interest rate can attract more capital flows and therefore cause the local currency to strengthen. That's, I told you this international Fisher effect might have some conflict in the real world, right? Well, this is one. IFE theory contradicts IFE theory with high interest rate high interest rate, if IFE theory with high interest rate, then the inflation should go higher, and then high inflation should result in weak currency. That's IFE. Let me write it here. IFE with the high interest rate, that will lead to, let me use this this one here, this one. Okay, all right. IFE with high interest rate, that means that will lead to high inflation, and then that will lead to weak currency, right? Weak currency value, exchange rate. That is IFE, right? IFE. So this is a PPP. No, this is Fisher effect, and this one is PPP. Because the IFE is a combination of the Fisher effect and the purchasing power parity. So that is a conclusion. But here it says IFE theory contrary. Now, country with high interest rate can attract more capital flows and then push the local currency value to strengthen. So that is the opposite case, right? Opposite case that happened. That's a conflict that happened. Also, IFE theory contract how central bank may purposely try to raise interest rate, to attract fund and strengthen the value. It's the same thing, right? Same thing. So I told you that the international Fisher effect is a combination of purchasing power parity and the Fisher effect. So when we talk about international Fisher effect, you have to go through this one, Fisher effect and purchasing power parity, and we come to this conclusion. However, sometimes in the real world, that would not happen that way, right? But the thing is that this story, that happens, but that does not include the story about inflation, okay? So that's, as I said at the beginning, it happens. All right, and also, Caroline, can you read the second part?
Yeah.
Okay.
Whether the IFE holds in reality is dependent on the countries involved in the period assessed, especially meaningful to situations in which the multinational corporations and large investors consider investing in countries where prevailing interest rates are very high.
Okay, all right. So whether IFE holds in reality is dependent on the countries involved and the period assessed. Okay, that's true. So you should not make any simple, straightforward conclusion. It depends, especially meaningful to a situation in which the MNCs and large investors consider investing in countries where the prevailing interest rates are very high. So that happens. I mean, just based on this story, you make the investing in the countries where the interest rate is very high, you may get some problem, some issue. If you don't pay attention to the inflation in that country, the changing pattern of inflation and the match that with the interest rate, then you might not get the profit that you're expecting, because the international Fisher effect that combined not just interest rate and inflation. So you have to pay attention to both factors. If you just pay attention to just interest rate, then you might get in trouble. Right? You see what I mean? Okay. And interest rate parity. All right, we talk about this one, right? Covered interest arbitrage, for example, if you are given this information, let's see what happens, right? Let's see what happens. For example, this one is 4.3% in US, so one plus 4.3%. So 1.043, so $1 will increase to 1.043, right, in 1 year. But if you move this one, we use the 1 million, right? 1 million to 1,043,000. If you move this one to UK and change that to UK pound and invest there, let's see what happens. The exchange rate is 1.6697. So that is the pound. So 589,280 pound. And then if you invest that into, if you invest that at 5.99%, right? 1 plus 5.99%, you get this one. You end up with this one, right? I got this, and then this is pound. And then if you change that one by covering by the forward contract, then this one times 1.667 there, the 1.67, yeah, 1.67, yeah. If you look at this one here, what do you see? These two are not equal. These two are not equal. In this case, US is more in favor of here you say covered interest arbitrage is in favor of, in this case, UK investors. In favor in US, that means in favor of UK investors, because they move their capital to US and enjoy higher profit. So they are not interest rate parity. They should be equal. If they are equal, it's two equal, then it is called interest rate parity. All right, interest rate parity. So that means, as we did in chapter 7, the complete form is 1 plus IUS, that is this one, right? 1 plus IUS. And then this one, the hedged forward investment, hedged UK investment, this one is this. If these two are equal, then we say that's the situation is called interest rate parity. Interest rate parity. All right, follow me? So based on this interest rate parity, we can come up with this way. And if you move this one this way, 1 plus IUS, 1 plus IUK, that's forward divided by spot. Now, if we want to change relative form here, if you subtract 1 from both sides, then we come up with this, okay? And then this one, US and UK, this one is offset it here. This one, US interest rate minus UK interest rate divided by 1 plus UK. And as you know, approximation is this one, right? And then this is what? This is forward discount, forward premium. So actually, this one should be insert approximation. See, approximation. It should be this way. Approximation, right? So approximation is relative interest rate between these two countries. Relative interest rate should be close to the forward premium, forward discount. Forward premium, forward discount. All right. All right. Now, if you look at this one, 45-degree line is the ILP interest rate parity line. Now, as long as they are in here, that's in parity, in equilibrium. However, let's look at this one. Point above ILP, point above ILP, Z there. If you look at Z, the relative interest rate is -1%. This one is -1%. And then the forward premium is -3%. There is way away from this, interest rate parity line there. So in this case, this is the exchange rate will adjust to move this one toward this international the interest rate parity condition there. So Z will start to move toward ILP line toward A there. See that? How do you do that? So in this case, in this case, since this one, this portion is greater than this portion, this one is greater than this portion, the CIA is in favor of US. That means UK in US. That means for UK investors. So I would like to say, in favor of UK investors in US. So that means they move their capital to US. So they move this one, the arbitrageurs, international arbitrageurs, that's UK investors, UK arbitrageurs, they move their capital from UK to US to exploit this situation, right? The covered interest arbitrage. This arbitrage arbitrage opportunity will start to disappear. This one will kind of, wait a second. Yeah, this one will, F is this one here. The forward rate minus the exchange rate divided by exchange rate. This one will adjust toward -1. This one to approach this -1. So that way, this arbitrage, covered interest arbitrage opportunity will disappear. Now that means this in deviation will narrow, and disappear. Okay. Why is the opposite case? If it is below there, look at this. Forward premium is 4%, but the relative inflation is only 2% there. So in this case, forward premium will adjust lower to approach 2%. And then that means this one will start to move toward until it hits ILP line. So in this case, CIA in favor of, okay, let me check. US investors in UK. That means US investors will move their capital toward UK, and then invest there with forward contract. Then they will enjoy the covered interest arbitrage profit there. As more people do, this covered interest arbitrage opportunity will narrow there. As move this way, the arbitrage opportunity will narrow, and then will disappear. Does that make sense? All right. I think we are doing very well. Okay. Right. And UFR is simple. This is very simple. UFR is the forward rate as unbiased forecaster of future spot rate. UFR, this is simple. Forward rate is like expected, future spot rate. Okay. So forward rate is an unbiased forecaster of future spot rate. That simple idea is called UFR. So unbiased forecaster of future spot rate. So that's the fifth idea. We need this, actually. We need this. That makes sense, actually. You know, forward rate is not just randomly determined. Forward rate is determined based on the banks, the currency dealers, exchange rate, foreign currency dealers, foreign exchange dealers' best expectation about future spot rate. So that makes sense. That totally makes sense. Forward rate is determined based on the best expectation of the bank dealers. So it is provided by banks, right? So by okay. How do you interrelate this one? We talk about like 5 different parity conditions, right? Different parity conditions, and we can relate this one this way. So at the beginning, we talk about the variables is the percentage change in exchange rate, and this one is inflation, relative inflation. This one relative interest rate. This is forward premium. Right? So let's talk about this one. Which theory connect the the percentage change in exchange rate and relative inflation? Which theory? Anybody? If you go back to the previous discussion.
The international Fisher effect.
International Fisher effect is not, no, it's this one, right? This is inflation. Big one is inflation. If you go back there, exchange rate change, percentage change, and this inflation, relative inflation. So this one, the first one is PPP. See, PPP connect percentage change in exchange rate and relative inflation. All right. Okay, this one, percentage change in exchange rate and relative interest rate, that was international Fisher effect. That was international Fisher effect, right? And which one connect inflation, relative inflation and relative interest rate? Anybody? If you look at this one here, Fisher effect, what do you see? Relative interest rate, relative inflation, right? Should be equal. So this one should be Fisher effect, right? Now, which one connect percentage change in exchange rate and forward premium? I mean, no, forward premium. Wait, just one. Yeah. Which one connects this one and forward premium?
Is that the international Fisher one? Oh, never mind.
That one is this one. Look at this. This one. This one is like one step further down. Right? E1 minus E0. E1 minus E0. All right. Okay. E1 minus E0 divided by E0. That is E, right? That is the percentage change, right? This one is F, okay. F minus E0 divided by E0. You see that? Now, that means That means, why this one is smaller? Okay. See, this one, let's make it to 14. Okay, that's good. All right. To equalize this one, what do we need? To equalize this one, what do we need? This fish diameter, this forward rate, and this future spot rate should be equal, right? Should be equal. That is exactly UFR, future effect, is at E1. So this one is, this match is UFR, unbiased forecaster of future spot rate is forward rate. All right. And one more. Which one connects these two? Forward premium, this is forward premium. Forward premium should be equal to relative interest rate. Anybody? If you look at this one here, forward premium should be equal to relative interest rate. You see that? So this forward premium and this one is connected by interest rate parity condition. See, there's a put, oops. This way. All right. See there? So all this network, all this complete network of international equilibrium condition or parity condition is completely matched or networked through our 5 parity, 5 equilibrium condition. What about this? There's one is missing, right? One connection is missing. How do we explain that? So this is a kind of network. This one is unnecessary. Do you remember in chemistry? In chemistry, like network. When we talk about network, if it is n network, if n minus 1 network is in equilibrium, the remaining network, the link network, is automatically in equilibrium. Is from the chemistry theory. You remember that? Anybody remember that? So if the n network, if n minus 1 network is in equilibrium, then the rest is just implied, automatic. So we don't need this because it is implied. Because all 5 are connected, and the 6th one, the last one, we don't need to any theory that connect these two, because it is automatically connected in equilibrium. Does that make sense? All right. That's my theory, my story. I mean, you don't find this kind of theory in any textbook. I mean, that's based on my all-time memory of chemistry class. I think I remember that. All the remaining n minus 1 is in equilibrium, then this one is implied. I think we did a good job and we completed on time. All right. So do you have any question? Let me stop.
I have a question.
Okay.
In the interrelationship, what does the E stand for all the way on the left?
This one?
The small. Yeah.
This one? That's the percentage change in exchange rate. This one here. See? This one. Here. See? E is the percentage change in the exchange rate.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.